best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Numerous legal challenges to Obamacare have taken place. A very interesting one. You've heard from him before, Dr. Larry Kawa, orthodontist in my own state and county, Palm Beach County, Florida. It's progressing through the courts, now up at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta. Dr. Kawa is here with us now. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back on your show, Kerry.
Hey, so where's the case currently?
Well, right now it is in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. It has graduated to this level of court, which is second only to the United States Supreme Court. And we filed on February 26th, and we're very hopeful that a 3-judge panel will give us standing. And once we have that standing, the case would then be tried on its merit in the Southern District of Florida.
Yeah, well, we wish you all the best of luck there. And obviously, Obamacare is taking its toll on every one of us. Let's face it, it's affecting the economy. But you personally, your practice, orthodontics, have you been affected by Obamacare personally?
Absolutely, in many different ways, both directly and indirectly. It's affected me because I'm a quote-unquote large employer, even though I don't feel like a large employer. I mean, let's face it, I'm one orthodontist with one office. I don't see myself on the level of Exxon, but the government does. And I have had to jump through hoops, and having then jumped through all these hoops that they've had me jump through, they have then said, you know what, forget about it. You didn't even have to do that because we're actually going to push things off for a couple of years. So you just wasted your time, energy, money, and resources. And in doing so, I feel my business has been damaged. And along with those damages, it allows me to bring a lawsuit in federal court. And that's why I did that.
But you had to promise that you didn't not hire anybody to avoid being affected by Obamacare, didn't you?
That actually applies to those that are 100 or above, that you're not allowed to downsize to be below 100, unless you swear that you're doing it for business reasons rather than to, quote-unquote, evade a tax. The tax which the administration argued was never a tax but was a penalty.
That's a catch-22, isn't it? Because if they don't believe you at the IRS, you could potentially have major liability, couldn't you?
Without a doubt. And even if you win a lawsuit with the IRS, they say you could beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. They could drag you through the courts for a couple of years. As I'm sure you're very well aware, this government has weaponized an agency that you and I pay for against us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm well aware of it. It's kind of frightening, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're paying to fund the IRS, and while we're doing that, the IRS is targeting us. It's almost financially masochistic.
Yeah, unbelievable. And so exactly your lawsuit that you've got going on, what's the crux of it? What are you alleging here?
The crux of it is that the employer mandate states that it shall go into effect January 1st, 2014. I want to remind you that executive orders are really there or executive actions, I should say, since this was done by a blog post, not an executive order. It's really there for the president to enforce the existing laws, but there's nothing you could do by executive action to better enforce that date by making it a date precisely 2 years later. It's basically saying to the Congress that in making the laws, I as the president am going to substitute my judgment for your own. And he forgot that Congress makes the laws, and in Article 2 of the Constitution, forces him to enforce those existing laws, whether he agrees with them or not. And he took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. What underscores the hypocrisy of that oath is the fact that it is he that we most need to protect it from.
It's just amazing to me because I think in junior high school, as they then called it, we learned about this doctrine of separation of powers, checks and balances, all that kind of great stuff. And the Congress don't want to stand up to the president. The courts don't apparently want to stand up to him. Nobody wants to stand up to him and protect the country.
Well, I don't mind standing up to him, and I'll tell you, I do think we have three co-equal branches of government. It's just that one branch is a little more co-equal than the other two.
Yeah, well, it's, first among equals, as they call it. And
right, exactly.
Little frightening, I think.
Well, I mean, clearly it's an abuse of power, and it's my intention to end this abuse of power, and there's no question that arguably our case poses the greatest challenge to the administration on stopping their overreach of executive power and its abuse.
But if you don't have standing to challenge this, who does have standing is what I'd like to know.
It's a good question. I know that Congress doesn't because, they've been rendered not only has the president dismissed them as irrelevant, but he's also dismissed them as impotent. And the reason I say they're impotent is because he imposed the waiver on Congress. So they're not only exempt from Obamacare, but in addition to that, the federal government pays for 72% of their health care expenses for them, their immediate family members, every one of their individual staffers, and every one of their immediate family members as well. So how can you claim that you're injured by something that you're both exempt from and bonused for? It wouldn't even pass the laugh test in front of a federal judge. So if Congress won't do it, and of the other numerous large employers out there, not one of them has stepped forward, it basically leaves me alone. But I'm not afraid to be alone. All it could take is one lawsuit to stop this thing, and hopefully that not only will it put my business in a better position by having not wasted its time, energy, money, and resources, but it will also allow the Democrats to get a taste of their own cooking. They don't want to eat it, so that's why they keep delaying it and putting it off. Because the moment that it hits, America is going to find out that it's toxic, and they're going to vote in the other direction. So they keep trying to delay it until right after the midterm elections. But
Dr. Kawa, it's already hit in terms of those health care exchanges, in terms of higher premiums. You've got health insurance, presumably. What's happened to your premiums?
Well, of course, our premiums have gone up, but I would have to say that while it's hit, you haven't felt the impact of this yet. Here's a delay that flew under the radar. The enrollment date. In other words, the date at which the insurance companies have to disclose to you what your premiums are. Most people don't even know that this happened, but it was supposed to be October 15th. The administration said that insurance companies would need more time, so they legally are not allowed to disclose what the premiums are going to be until November 15th. They moved it from right before to right after the midterms, but there's no way insurance companies could have needed more time because they are legally required to have their premiums in by the end of May. So that made no sense at all. So obviously this is a political dodge. The same way that the president claimed that he was delaying the employer mandate because large employers needed quote-unquote transition relief, and then he obstinately refused that same luxury to the average working American with calloused hands when he refused to delay the individual mandate because he wanted the weed to have its roots sink in deep. So that's why he did that. It had nothing to do with transition relief. The only one getting relief was him.
Yeah, and you saw what happened in that special election up in Florida. You think that's a wake-up call to these Democrats?
I do think it's a wake-up call. And while the Democrats like to argue that it was a seat that was held by Republicans for 58 years, my counter-response is that the Democratic component, Alex Sink, outspent Jolly 3-1. She had Bill Clinton there rooting for her and trying to rile the base. And Jolly was a lobbyist from Washington, D.C. There's no title that could be more toxic, and he still won. So for those Democrats that would like to say this was a 58-year-long tenured seat, I would like to point out that the Democrats clearly had a tremendous edge, and they still lost the election.
Yeah, not to mention the fact there was a third candidate, a libertarian, clearly siphoning off votes from the Republican, and there was divisiveness in the Republicans' campaign. He didn't really make a great case against Obamacare. It was really the outside groups that did that. There were a lot of other things. He really ran an awful campaign. In spite of everything, all that running against him, he still won. I mean, you know.
Yep, because it's not that he won, it's that Alex Sink sunk.
Yeah, sunk.
She was tied to a losing proposition known as Obamacare.
Yeah, I said, "Oh, we don't want to repeal it. We just want to fix it." You know, but she couldn't even really enunciate a case on what to fix because the whole thing is awful. And Peter Schiff, you know him, he said, well, the best thing about Obamacare is the website. That's the best thing. And geez, if that's the best thing you can say about something, a website that doesn't work, still to this day doesn't really work right. And, you know, they say they've signed up 4.2 million people, but 15-20% of those people are not going to make their first payment. So take off 20%, so 20% of 4.2 million, and all of a sudden, oops, not looking too good, is it?
That's a very good point. In fact, yesterday, along those lines, Sebelius testified for Congress, and they said to her, how many people have signed up? And she said 4.2 million. And then they said to her, how many of those people have actually paid for their insurance?
Oh, I don't know.
You know, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, because there's no provision in that wonderful website to figure out whether you paid or not. So, Dr. Kawa, what do you think about this Catherine Sebelius? I mean, don't you think she should get a special award from the administration, combat pay, doing the administration's bidding? She had nothing to do with anything. It's obvious it was all directed from the White House. I hate to say she was just following orders, but she was just following orders, and she's getting abuse. She's like the deer caught in headlights constantly.
Well, she's only one signature away from ending it all. All she's got to do is resign.
Yeah, why doesn't she resign? That's what I don't understand. Like, has she no pride?
Well, apparently she has no ethics, and if pride goes with ethics, they go together. You know, as you may recall, about a year ago today, she was accused of raising money from the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation and from H&R Block to help fund Enroll America, a group of ex-Obama staffers paid $40 an hour to help get people signed up and pay for navigators. And as you know, there's called Article 1, Section 9.7 of the Constitution says there shall be no appropriations by the Treasury other than that approved by the Congress. And she did a workaround, and that was totally illegal. It was a violation of what's called the Anti-Deficiency Act, but she was never indicted. And to this day, nothing's ever happened from that, and it was blatantly illegal, and nothing she's even denied.
Yeah, well, when was the last time someone working for the government had any ethics or pride for that matter? I mean, I think that's why they work for the government in the first place. I'm beginning to think, yeah, don't you?
Well, I agree that there's definitely it's a corrupt environment. You know, I was there a couple of weeks ago. I came home, you know, I felt like dipping myself in bleach. I went there for a press conference, and I had members of Congress standing with me, particularly one who I've got to commend, Representative Mike Fitzpatrick, Republican from Pennsylvania, who was brave enough to step forward and help me organize the press conference. He was terrific. And it was on a snowy, cold day, and we were right outside the house on the House Triangle, and we were announcing that our lawsuit was being filed in the appellate court in the Circuit Court of Atlanta, Georgia, the 11th Circuit Court.
Yeah, so some of them actually had the stones to come out there and be there with you. And, you know, our state, Florida, has had more public officials convicted of crimes and put in jail over the past 30 years than any other state in the country. I don't know if it's because we're more corrupt or because we're more proficient at catching corrupt officials. Take your pick. But
well, as a city, though, I'd have to give the Stanley Cup to Chicago. I mean, there's no place more corrupt than Chicago.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. They seem to have mastered the art. I mean, after all, the Democratic Party is heir to Al Capone and Lucky Luciano, and and they've become a little more refined over the years, and that is therefore that makes the current occupant of the White House the natural descendant of that party.
Well, without a doubt. You know, two of their governors went to prison, half their mayors went to prison, and the current mayor is the former chief of staff to President Obama himself. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. And former Clinton official as well, and all around good guy.
Without a doubt. Yeah, very interesting scenario there.
Yeah. So what do you think is next? If the appeal doesn't go through, I guess, then we hope there's a sweep, Republican sweep in November. But do you have any confidence in these Republicans, realistically, Dr. Kawa?
I got to tell you, it seems like Republicans have simply become the party of Democrats light. And I can't say that I blame every one of them, because unfortunately a lot of their constituency has moved so far to the left, and obviously many of them wind up pandering. But I wouldn't do it if I were them, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And they say an excuse is just the reason why you failed. Well, that's the excuse for why they've moved to the left, is because the liberals have the better messengers, but we have the more logical message. And at some point, we have to reach a critical mass where it just becomes so evident that we can't continue this way. The problem, since you mentioned Peter Schiff, and he authored that book, Crash Proof, is that it may not occur gradually. It may be, just like you saw in March of 2008, where people went running out of Lehman Brothers. You might see people running out of everywhere. The crash of the American dollar is not promised to occur slowly. When the dam breaks, I mean, it could be something of the nature of the Great Depression. I mean, bear in mind that in the last 5 years, we have accumulated more debt in the United States of America than in the first 233 years of our nation. It's shocking.
Staggering.
I mean, picture that. In one term of President Obama, he accumulated more debt than all the other 43 United States presidents in all of their multiple terms in office. He did it in one term.
Well, it's good to know he's competent at doing something.
Yeah, he accused George Bush of being unpatriotic and irresponsible for spending $500 billion a year, and then he went ahead and quadrupled it and spent $2,000 billion a year for his first 4 years in office.
Yeah, what have we gotten from it is really the question, Doctor. Where are we better off?
Kerry, don't you see the investments in infrastructure?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I see the unemployment rate has gotten much better. It's only at 6.7% now. But the structural unemployment rate, the labor force participation rate, is at a level that we haven't seen in 40 years. And you could go on and on. And the taxes, forget about that. And lots of great things happening. So Doctor, where do you go from here? You've got this lawsuit. It sounds like you've gotten a taste of the whole debate. I don't think you're just going to be satisfied practicing orthodontics from this point on.
I don't see myself just becoming a politician. I'm from my perspective, I just want to win this lawsuit and protect the Constitution. I feel the president has gone too far. I'm disappointed in my party. I'm disappointed in the elected officials that have accomplished nothing. And if I need to step in and do this myself, that's exactly what I'll do, and that's what I've done. And I expect that I am going to win my case, and I will stop at nothing. If they were to ask me what it would take to stop me, my answer is very simple: obey the law. And it seems like it's too much to ask. But we still have a United States Constitution. We're a nation of laws. My message to the president is you should lead by example, and how could you expect the rest of America to obey the law when you refuse to do so yourself? And being that he has changed the law over 24 times now, one of two things logically must be true. Either A, he didn't know what he was doing when he put it together then, or B, he doesn't know what he's doing when he is redoing it now. But America deserves better than to be led by a leader who either didn't or doesn't know what he's doing.
Or C, both of those are true. And, the House just passed a law basically saying that Obama has to follow the law. It's a requirement.
With due respect to Trey Gowdy, who put that together, and I happen to love the guy, that law will go nowhere, assuredly will go nowhere, because
of course.
It's dead on arrival in the Senate. And even if it passed through the Senate, do you really think the president is going to sign that into law? Yeah. It would be insane.
Even if he did, what difference would it make? Because he's already demonstrated his disdain for the law in the first place. So, I'll pass the law, and then I just won't. I'll ignore it anyway. The only thing I haven't really seen him do that much is ignore court orders. I've seen him stall them. I've seen him, Well,
it won't be much of a problem for him because he stacked the deck in the D.C. Circuit Court now by adding more judges, saying that they needed more help because they had a bigger workload. If you remember, FDR tried doing that with the United States Supreme Court because he was an absolute tyrant, and the Senate, fortunately, they stopped him. And bear in mind, FDR passed 3,300 executive orders, most of all. And there are those on the left that would argue that this president has only done 165 executive orders, fewer than George W. Bush. And that would be all well and good, except for the fact that what they're not counting is all of the blog posts and the tweets and the internal memorandums that he's done that are insane and immeasurable. So he is ruling by executive action, not necessarily by executive order alone. Executive orders are numbered.
Exactly. You pretty well nailed it. And, what's next? That will remain to be seen. I could see him ignoring court orders. I mean, this went back to Andrew Jackson ignoring court orders as well, where he said, the court has the court has their orders. I have the Army, whatever. I don't remember the exact quote. Not good with that. But I don't think he'll ignore court orders. But they've stalled out. They've ignored subpoenas, and they have ignored orders to produce documents and such things. We'll see what happens. It looks like, I wish.
Well, bear in mind, he's got the Attorney General as his lapdog, and as he has his pen and his throne, and then he comes in front of the State of the Union and says that he's going to ignore Congress, and Congress stands up and applauds him.
And on that,
he just dismissed him as irrelevant, and they thanked him.
And on that note, we got to go. So where do we find your website, Dr. Kawa?
You can find me on theamerican.net. That's theamerican.net. There's no contribute button. It's just to help broadcast the message.
Thanks so much. And link to that, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for the free newsletter. Appreciate your work, Dr. Kawa. Good luck.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.